If it is false, then for the good of society, and especially for the good of the poor people who have fallen prey to this confusion.
I think a lot of people are beginning to notice that the contraceptive mentality is the beginning of the pride mentality, because the contraceptive mentality divorces sex from the consequences of sex. The conclusion that one draws is that condoms are kind of gay.
Michael Knowles of the Daily Wire. Listen to this diatribe that he gives around condoms, contraceptives. This is the same guy who said that transgenderism should be eradicated from the face of the planet.
There can be no middle way in dealing with transgenderism. It is all or nothing. If transgenderism is true, if men really can become women, then it's true for everybody of all ages. If transgenderism is false, as it is, if men really can't become women, as they cannot, then it's false for everybody too. And if it's false, then we should not indulge it, especially since that indulgence requires taking away the rights and customs of so many people. If it is false, then for the good of society, and especially for the good of the poor people who have fallen prey to this confusion, transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely. The whole preposterous ideology at every level.
They were never going to stop at attacking the LGBTQIA community. They were not going to stop at revoking a woman's right to choose what she's going to do with her body. They're going for condoms. And I want you to listen to his justification so that on the other side, we can discuss exactly how deranged these men are. These men who want to control women's bodies. They have lost it.
You go all the way back to contraception. There were two cases, Eisenstadt and Griswold. First was Griswold in 1965. Then Eisenstadt comes around in 1972, the year before Roe v. Wade. And Griswold finds a right to condoms within a marriage. Where is that in the Constitution? I have no idea, but some libs on the court discovered that magically in 1965. But they said, but there is no right to condoms outside of marriage. Then 7 years later, the court discovers, oh, actually, there was more invisible ink in the Constitution, and actually there is a right to condoms outside of marriage. Okay, maybe you like condoms, maybe you don't like condoms. I don't know where you're going to find that in the Constitution. I think a lot of people are beginning to notice that the contraceptive mentality is the beginning of the pride mentality, because the contraceptive mentality divorces sex from the consequences of sex. It introduces a sterile sexual ethic, which is exactly what gave us the pride movement. There's no distinction here. If you can't read between the lines, the conclusion that one draws is that condoms are kind of gay. To put it as bluntly as possible, okay?
You heard that right. I'm not even going to take the bait of that last sentence. But I want to, unfortunately, I'm going to have to engage in the argument here because, well, this is what conservatives do. They present information as though they're rooting their arguments in that information, when in reality, it's just cover for their bigotry. He brings up the case of Griswold versus the state of Connecticut. I really want people to understand what that case, if you don't, some of you probably already do, but for those who don't know that case was involving the fact that the state of Connecticut had outlawed all contraceptives, including condoms. It was such a ridiculous law that even the justice who dissented, Justice Potter Stewart, said that the law in Connecticut at the time was an quote, uncommonly silly law. Now, the grounds for the decision was on a married couple's right to privacy, meaning that a state does not have the right to dictate what goes on in the bedroom of a married couple and how it goes on and whether or not they choose to use protection, contraceptives, whether or not they want to have sex without having children. That's literally the decision. And then that decision was applied outwards beyond marriages. Later on, that's what Michael Knowles was saying. He said, oh, now it's not even in marriage. Yeah, because two adults or however many consenting adults engaging in sexual activity at that moment, they have the right to not have a state government involved in their sexual activity. What could be more intrusive than a state or federal government that comes into your bedroom and says, you cannot wear a condom. That is, as Justice Potter, who dissented in Griswold, said, that is an uncommonly silly law. And this was from the dissent, the same side that Michael Knowles is arguing from. The justice who dissented in the Griswold case said that it was a stupid law, Michael Knowles. And how absurd is it for us to be in a place in this country where now they're using the justification of the hatred towards the LGBTQIA community, right? The hatred, the homophobia, the transphobia on this planet, in this country specifically, has given these monsters a free-for-all. They are running up the scoreboard. They are making a speed run through all of their bigoted ideas, and now they have arrived at the idea that you do not have the right to contraception. And it's not just a right to contraception. Like this is the lie. This is the sleight of hand. This is the misinformation and the propaganda work of Michael Knowles in this particular case. And this is not even his handiwork. He's just now catching up to some literature that's been around for a while. The justification against, or the claim, the argument against contraception has been here for a while. Michael Knowles is just catching up with it. But this is what they are doing. They are saying that, oh, there's no mention of condoms in the Constitution, but there is the mention of the Fourth Amendment. There is the right to privacy. And every single one of us has the right to not have a state, local, or federal government intrude into the privacy of our homes, and most certainly the privacy of our bedrooms. I hope people can see. I hope that you can see how easily all of these bigotries pair together. It's not just racism, and it's not just misogyny. It's also homophobia and transphobia. All of these bigotries pair perfectly well together. I mean, they just go hand in hand like peas in a pod. Homophobia, racism, misogyny, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism. But the most disturbing thing about this is the fact that you will continue to have individual Black people, women, Muslims, Jewish people, gay people who side with these fascists for whatever their individual motivation is. But far too often, that motivation is another bigotry. You get some gay people who side with conservatives because, well, they're racist. You get some Black people who side with conservatives because, well, they can't get over their homophobia. Their pastor preached Sodom and Gomorrah just last Sunday. You're going to have some Muslim people who side with these racists because of their homophobia. That's the part that's a little heartbreaking, but it's a sobering reality that when fascism comes to this country, it's not just going to be waving a flag and carrying a Bible. It's going to be diverse, because unless we get over our individual bigotries and then cross-pollinate our silos, if we don't work together, if we don't get out of our individual communities and work with each other, we are going to see these conservatives continue to run up the scoreboard against every bit of progress. And they're doing so good right now that they're ready to move against condoms. Because as Michael Knowles says,
if you can't read between the lines, the conclusion that one draws is that condoms are kind of gay.